Listen to me closely. 2025 may have bruised you. It may have tested you. It may have stretched you until you thought you would break, but it did not bury you. You are still standing, still breathing, still believing. And if you're still here, that means God is not finished with you yet. I didn't come to whisper tonight. I didn't come to entertain you. I came to declare something over your life. I will become a champion in 2026, not because it's easy, not because the road is smooth, because pressure creates champions and fire reveals gold. I stand before you as proof that survival is not the same as victory. You've been surviving long enough. You've been praying, waiting, crying, and hoping. But now it's time to rise, fight, and win. 2026 is not just another year on the calendar. It is a line in the sand. It is the moment you stop explaining your pain and start demonstrating your power. Look at your neighbor and say, I didn't come this far to quit now. I will become a champion, not in talk, not in hype, but in discipline, faith, consistency, and courage. Champions are not created on the stage. They are created in the shadows, long before the lights come on, before the applause ever starts, before anyone calls your name. There is a quiet place where decisions are being made. That private place is where greatness is either built or buried. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become strong, disciplined, or victorious. You become those things when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one is encouraging you, and you still choose to show up. What you do in private is a preview of what the world will eventually see in public. In private, there are no shortcuts. There is no image to protect, no reputation to perform for. It's just you and your commitment. This is where excuses lose their power and responsibility takes over. In the private moments, you confront your weaknesses honestly. You face the habits that have been holding you back, the fears you've been hiding behind, and the patterns you've been repeating. Champions don't run from that confrontation. They lean into it. They understand that discipline in private creates freedom in public. Private preparation shapes your character before it ever displays your talent. Talent may open doors, but character keeps you in the room. When no one is watching, champions are training their minds, guarding their focus, and sharpening their skills. They are choosing rest over distraction, growth over comfort, and purpose over pleasure. Every quiet sacrifice becomes a brick in the foundation of future victory. Every unseen effort strengthens the muscles that will be tested later under pressure. In those private hours, doubt often tries to speak the loudest. It asks if the effort is worth it, if the progress is real, if anyone will ever notice. Champions keep going anyway. They are not driven by recognition. They are driven by resolve. They know that consistency repeated daily compounds into power. The world may call it sudden success, but the champion knows it was years in the making. When the moment finally comes and the spotlight turns on, the champion does not panic. There is no scrambling, no fear, no confusion, because the work has already been done. The public victory is simply the echo of private obedience. That is why champions walk with quiet confidence. They have nothing to prove, because they already proved it to themselves when no one else was around. Pain is not the thing destroying you. Comfort is the real threat. Pain tells you that something is changing, stretching, growing, and being challenged. Comfort, on the other hand, whispers that where you are is good enough, that you can settle, slow down, and stop pushing. Pain sharpens you, but comfort dulls you. Champions understand this truth early. If you avoid pain at all costs, you will also avoid greatness. Growth demands pressure, resistance, and moments that feel uncomfortable to the flesh but necessary for the future. Comfort keeps you familiar with your limits, but pain introduces you to your potential. When life applies pressure, it exposes what is inside you. It forces you to develop strength you didn't know you had, discipline you'd never practiced before, and courage you never had to call on. Pain strips away illusions and reveals reality. It shows you where you've been weak, where you've been passive, and where you've been coasting. A champion does not resent this revelation. They respect it because it becomes a blueprint for transformation. Comfort lies by promising peace while quietly stealing progress. It convinces you to delay decisions, postpone discipline, and tolerate situations that drain your purpose. Comfort keeps you repeating cycles because change feels risky. Pain, however, interrupts cycles. Pain demands a response. It forces you to choose whether you will rise or retreat. Champions choose to rise, not because it feels good, but because they understand that temporary discomfort leads to lasting strength. Pain also teaches focus. When you are uncomfortable, you become aware of what truly matters. You stop wasting energy on distractions and start paying attention to alignment. You learn how to prioritize discipline over desire and purpose over pleasure. Pain matures you. It teaches you patience, endurance, and humility. It reshapes your mindset so that you no longer fear challenges, but see them as invitations to evolve. Comfort produces complacency, and complacency produces decay. Nothing grows in a comfort zone. Not muscles, not vision, not faith, not leadership. Champions refuse to confuse ease with blessing. They understand that the road to victory is rarely smooth, but it is always purposeful. They don't chase pain for pain's sake, but they also don't run from it. They let it refine them, instruct them, and prepare them. In the end, pain leaves you stronger, wiser, and sharper, while comfort leaves you weaker and dependent. Champions choose the refining fire over the padded seat. They understand that discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation. Every battle you will ever face is first fought in your mind. Long before circumstances change, long before doors open or close, a conversation is already happening inside you. The mind sets the direction for the life. And if the mind is confused, fearful, or undisciplined, the outcome will reflect that. Champions understand that they cannot afford mental chaos. They know that victory begins with intentional thinking, with choosing what thoughts are allowed to stay and which ones must be confronted and replaced. A trained mind does not deny reality, but it refuses to be ruled by it. Situations may be challenging, setbacks may be painful, and delays may be frustrating, but a renewed mind interprets those moments differently. Instead of seeing obstacles as evidence of failure, it sees them as part of the process. The mind becomes a filter, not a sponge. It filters discouragement, doubt, and fear while absorbing wisdom, discipline, and direction. Without this mental training, even small problems feel overwhelming and opportunities are easily missed. Champions invest in their inner life because they know that external success cannot outgrow internal stability. If the mind is weak, pressure will expose it. Under stress, untrained thoughts default to panic, comparison, and self-sabotage, but a disciplined mind responds with clarity, patience, and resolve. This kind of mindset is not accidental. It is developed through daily choices to think higher, believe deeper, and speak with intention. What you repeatedly tell yourself eventually becomes what you believe, and what you believe shapes how you move. Training the mind also requires learning how to sit with discomfort without surrendering to it. Doubt may knock, but it does not have to move in. Fear may speak, but it does not get the final word. A champion's mind acknowledges emotions without letting emotions take control. This creates emotional maturity, which is essential for leadership, endurance, and long-term success. Emotional reactions may be natural, but disciplined responses are powerful. When the mind is aligned, momentum follows. Focus sharpens, decision-making becomes cleaner. Energy stops leaking into unnecessary worries and begins flowing toward execution. A trained mind creates resilience, allowing you to recover faster from setbacks and remain steady during uncertainty. It keeps you grounded when things go wrong and humble when things go right. Before you conquer systems, environments, or opponents, you must conquer internal resistance. The mind must be prepared to hold the weight of the victory you are praying for. When your thinking changes, your capacity expands. Champions do not wait for circumstances to improve before they think differently. They change their thinking first, and their world eventually follows. Motivation is loud, emotional, and exciting, but it is also unstable. It rises when things feel good and disappears when life becomes demanding. Champions do not build their future on something that comes and goes. They understand that motivation may start the journey, but it cannot sustain it. What carries them forward is consistency, the quiet, repeated decision to show up even when enthusiasm is gone and feelings are tired. Consistency does not ask how you feel. It asks who you are committed to becoming. Consistency turns ordinary actions into extraordinary results. One disciplined choice may not seem powerful in the moment, but repeated daily, it reshapes identity. Champions are not defined by occasional big moments. They are defined by what they do repeatedly. When motivation fades, habits remain. Habits create structure, and structure creates progress. This is why consistency always outperforms inspiration. Inspiration is a spark, but consistency is the fire that keeps burning long after the spark fades. There will be days when you do not feel strong, focused, or confident. Champions show up anyway. They do not negotiate with their emotions or wait for the perfect mood. They move forward in obedience to their purpose, not in response to their feelings. Consistency builds trust in yourself. Every time you follow through despite resistance, you reinforce the belief that you can be relied on. That self-trust becomes a powerful force. When pressure increases and expectations rise, consistency also protects you from burnout. Motivation often pushes people too hard, too fast, causing them to overextend and eventually collapse. Consistency, however, values sustainability. It allows growth to happen in stages, strengthening you over time instead of exhausting you in bursts. Champions understand that longevity matters more than intensity. They are not trying to impress, they are trying to endure. Over time, consistency changes how challenges feel. What once felt heavy becomes familiar. What once required effort becomes second nature. Discipline removes drama from progress. There is no emotional debate, no inner argument, just execution. This steadiness creates momentum, and momentum builds confidence. The more consistent you are, the less resistance you experience, because your mind and body adapt to the rhythm of commitment. Consistency also separates those who wish from those who win. Many people want the outcome, but few are willing to commit to the process daily. Champions respect the process. They understand that success is rarely the result of one great decision, but rather thousands of small, faithful ones. Even when results are not immediately visible, consistency keeps them moving, trusting that unseen progress is still progress. When the applause is gone and motivation is silent, consistency speaks the loudest. It carries you through boredom, resistance, doubt, and delay. Champions do not depend on feeling ready. They depend on being faithful to the work. That faithfulness compounds over time, turning effort into excellence and intention into victory. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is unstoppable. Yesterday has a powerful voice if you allow it to keep speaking. Old failures, past mistakes, missed opportunities, and painful memories all try to travel with you into a new season. Champions understand that while the past may inform them, it must never imprison them. Carrying old failures into a new year is like trying to run forward while dragging heavy chains behind you. You may move, but you will never move freely. Freedom begins when you decide that what happened then will not define what happens next. Failure has a way of reshaping identity if it is not properly processed. It convinces you that you are what went wrong instead of someone who went through something difficult. Champions refuse that lie. They separate their experience from their worth. They understand that falling short does not make them broken. It makes them human. What matters is not the fall, but the refusal to stay down. Growth begins when you stop rehearsing the pain and start reclaiming your authority over your future. Holding on to past failures also distorts vision. It causes hesitation where there should be confidence and fear where there should be faith. Every new opportunity feels suspicious. Every challenge feels threatening, and every decision feels heavy. Champions recognize this pattern and make a conscious choice to release what no longer serves them. Letting go is not denial, it is alignment. It is choosing to live forward instead of constantly looking backward. The past cannot be edited, but it can be reinterpreted. Champions revisit old failures not to relive them, but to extract wisdom from them. They learn what didn't work, what was missing, and what must change. Once the lesson is learned, the memory loses its power. Shame no longer controls the narrative, and regret no longer dictates behavior. This shift turns pain into preparation and disappointment into direction. Refusing to carry old failures also restores energy. Regret is exhausting. Guilt drains focus and fractures confidence. When those weights are released, clarity returns. Decision-making becomes stronger. Courage becomes accessible again. Champions walk lighter because they are no longer punishing themselves for what they have already survived. They understand that self-forgiveness is not weakness, it is strength. A new year demands a new mindset. Champions do not allow expired seasons to dictate fresh opportunities. They honor the growth that came from the struggle, but they do not live in the struggle. They step forward with humility, not shame, and wisdom, not fear. The past becomes a reference point, not a residence. When you refuse to carry old failures, you create space for new victories. You show up differently, bolder, clearer, more present. You stop apologizing for who you are becoming and start owning it. Champions are not people without a past. They are people who refuse to let their past cancel their future. They understand that yesterday ended, lessons were learned, and tomorrow demands courage. The decision to move on is not forgetting, it is choosing to rise. Faith without movement is only intention, and intention alone never changes outcomes. Champions understand that belief must be paired with action to become power. Faith is the foundation. It shapes vision, anchors hope, and defines purpose. But action is the force that brings that faith into the physical world. You can believe in a better future and still remain stuck if you never step forward. Victory requires more than conviction, it requires execution. Faith gives you the courage to see beyond what is visible. It allows you to imagine growth before evidence appears and to trust purpose even when the path is unclear. But action is what tests the sincerity of that belief. Every step taken is a declaration that faith is not just something you speak, but something you live. Champions do not wait for perfect conditions to move. They move because they trust that clarity often comes through obedience. Action demands responsibility. It removes the comfort of blame and places ownership squarely on the individual. When you act, you are no longer just hoping, you are participating. This participation builds momentum. Even small steps generate confidence, and confidence fuels further action. Champions understand that progress is rarely dramatic at first, but it is always intentional. They respect the power of starting, even when the outcome is uncertain. Faith keeps you grounded when results are delayed. Action keeps you disciplined when emotions fluctuate. Together, they form a balance that sustains endurance. Without faith, action becomes exhausting and directionless. Without action, faith becomes passive and unproductive. Champions refuse both extremes. They trust deeply and they move decisively. They pray with expectation and work with focus. Action also reveals gaps that faith alone cannot expose. When you move, you discover what needs to be strengthened, refined, or adjusted. This feedback is essential for growth. Champions do not interpret obstacles as signs to stop, but as instructions to adapt. Every challenge becomes information, and every setback becomes an opportunity to recalibrate rather than retreat. There are moments when fear will attempt to override faith. In those moments, action becomes an act of defiance. Moving forward despite uncertainty weakens fear's grip and reinforces trust. Champions understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in its presence. Each bold step taken reaffirms belief and deepens confidence. When faith and action align, purpose accelerates. Doors begin to open, not always because circumstances change, but because perception does. You see options you once ignored and opportunities you once doubted. Champions do not wait to feel ready. They move while becoming ready. Their obedience creates access, and their persistence creates breakthroughs. In the end, faith lays the foundation, but action builds the structure. Champions are not defined by what they believe alone, but by what they are willing to do with that belief. They trust the vision and commit to the work. When belief and movement walk together, transformation is no longer a hope. It becomes inevitable. Listen to me, church. 2026 is not coming to see if you will survive. It's coming to see if you will rise. You've prayed, you've prepared, and now it's time to perform. No more excuses. No more delays. No more carrying the weight of yesterday. You are not a spectator. You are a champion in the making. Every struggle, every setback, every tear has been preparing you for this moment. Stand tall, lift your hands, and declare it with power. I will not just live in 2026. I will dominate it. I will become a champion.